all these physiologists said it's impossible to break a 4 minute mile. They're like, it's not physically possible for a human being. This was 1961 or something.
They didn't see Usain Bolt and the black guys coming around.
No, for the mile, right? So
but they just didn't see like the type of athletes that were going to be around today.
Well,
they couldn't envision that.
Miles a little bit different, but so what the point I'm making is that the guy runs it. He shatters. Everybody's like, oh my God, it's humanly possible. That same year, 5 other guys did it. Right?
47 days later.
Because they set the ceiling.
47 days.
47.
Because when you can conceive of something.
Yeah.
Bannister broke it. Then 47 days later, someone else breaks it.
Now high schoolers are doing it.
Literally the next 10 years, 300 people break it.
Yeah.
And it's once every 12 days. It was like just something crazy.
As soon as people go, oh shit, someone can do that? Yep. I can definitely do that.
And
That's what happens.
And that goes to, there's an amazing theory of, look, maybe once something happens, it's in our collective conscience, right? Like we are...
What's possible?
Yeah, like, you know what? We all know as a species, hey, this is something that we can do, and it's not the crazy. But I wrote a book called The Perfection Point that was a New York Times bestseller about what is the theoretical limit of human performance. If everything were perfect, if you had the perfect human specimen in the perfect conditions with the perfect gear, how fast could you run the 100? How fast could you run the mile? So you got to read the book, but I'll give you an example in the 100-meter dash. 100-meter dash is, I believe, the ultimate record is 8.99. That's the fastest that you possibly could run. Now you'll look up,
and you describe the body type. It's a really interesting book.
Here's the body type. Here's the perfect condition.
Is Usain Bolt close to that body type?
It is close to that body type. Yeah. You would say, okay, this is sort of
short body, but it's long legs.
Long legs. You have to have, obviously your stride rate. Versus stride length ratio needs to be exactly perfect. You have to be at the right elevation. You have to have the right shoes. You got to have the right tailwind, because if the tailwind has a limit, you have to have the right reaction time, because it doesn't count if the reaction time is off. Yikes. If everything were perfect and were lined up, and when people look at a graph and actually say, well, Usain Bolt is such an outlier, if you actually look at the graph, and I have it in the book, in The Perfection Point, Usain Bolt just put us back on course, because there was this dark age in between Ben Johnson and when Usain Bolt broke the record, because there was this dark period where the world record was not being broken every other month. Mm-hmm. Like it took a while for us to break it, and we caught back up to where we were supposed to be. So
until the steroids got really undetectable.
Well, right. Yeah. Well, the drugs ended up changing. That's what I was
going to say to in your book, when you say it's 8.999 or whatever the 100 is, do you take into account with performance enhancing drugs?
I assume that all athletes are on drugs.
You had a really had a really good point in the book about this. You talk a lot about it.
I assume everybody is on whatever can maximize the human frame. Because there is a limit to how strong and big and fast you can actually get, because the frame can only support so much. So in the theory of the book, I'm saying whether it's through a PED or a natural, you arrive at the ultimate the body could be. So it doesn't matter.
Performance,
right? It's a theoretical argument.
There's a physics.
There's a physics limit, right? Because you can only get to be so strong before the frame. If you have 2,000 pounds over your head and you're trying to bench, no matter how big and strong you think you are, it's going to crush you. Your frame can't support it.
What's the highest vertical leap that we've recorded? Did you record like?
Yeah, when you look at the vertical leap of the highest in history, it's really kind of controversial, because the numbers are so inexact. I mean, they're not accurate. If you look up right now, Michael Jordan 50-inch vertical leap, you'll find people that say, "Oh, Michael Jordan had a 50-inch vertical leap." Michael Jordan's the greatest basketball player to ever play, but he did not have a 50-inch vertical leap.
There's no way he had a 50-inch.
Right? There's no way. We had a young, healthy Dwight Howard in the lab that set the record for the highest touch of 12 feet 6 inches, highest touch of anybody in the NBA.
He's 7 foot tall, though, right?
He's like 6'11", 7 feet. But he's the perfect combination. When you hear people say, "Oh, my buddy can grab a quarter off the back of a backboard," you're like, not an NBA backboard. That's 13 feet.
Well, Dominique Wilkins apparently could.
Do you have footage of it? Nope. That's my answer. No, you
don't.
Yeah,
that's all. Yeah,
that's all conjecture, and that's all playground. That's all playground. Yeah. They put a quarter on a playground backboard and they grabbed it off the top of that, but not an NBA backboard. No way. Like if Michael Jordan couldn't do it, LeBron can't do it, Dwight Howard couldn't do it, nobody could. They can't do it.
But when you say highest vertical, and then you see Dwight Howard, who recorded in your studio, but he's 7 foot tall. I'm sure if you had Spud Webb in there,
we said
like he can jump obviously as high. No, but he's also fucking tiny.
Exactly. It depends on your power to weight.
Carter,
It's your power to weight ratio, your fast twitch muscle fibers. Depends how explosive you are. It's like all those factors lined up. So I've been very fortunate to have a front row seat to analyze the world's greatest athletes. The big commonality, quite honestly, in sort of all this performance talk is
they're black.
No,
Brendan.
No.
Big asses.
I'm sorry.
No,
I thought that's where you're going.
No.
Well, man,
I thought we were talking about
this
athletes.
is a family show.
Are you going to let me make my point?
Yeah,
Sorry.
sorry.
Lord.
God, sorry.
Yeah,
It's they work hard, they have vision, and they all have a moment in their life where they went one way or the other.
Yeah, but
It's
there's
that
also
they
a
all
physical
have
issue.
There is but listen, that physical issue, when people say, oh, they're all genetic freaks, I can't stand that argument of people saying, well, they're just your Herschel Walker argument. Well, he's just a genetic freak. At the elite level, they're all genetic
correct.
freaks. They're all, so you're on a level playing field. When people, they go, yeah, but that one guy is blank. Well, that one guy worked harder, stayed longer, was smarter, played the game better. They're not, when you say,
because there's a, and I'm not discrediting Herschel Walker, but there's a ton of guys who are out there just built like Herschel Walker who never did shit.
It's true.
There's a ton of those freaks out there.
It's true.
Who decided not to risk anything.
Oh, sure.
They're comfortable being in their spot.
Also, sports, being good at the
cappuccinos.
sport is elusive. It's very interesting because so you can have guys who are amazing athletes. I'm sure Larry Bird didn't have a high vertical and a fast 40, and there were a lot of things. I'm sure he's very athletic, way more athletic than people realize. But at the same time, what made him great was these sort of other mitigating circumstances, these other X
Larry
factors.
Bird was also a freak, though. You know what? Insurance people do this all the time. Because Larry was white, Larry was very smart, calculated, but if he is black, super freak athlete, no. Larry Bird is a freak.
Physically.
They are. I mean,
freak.
when you look at athletes and you sort of say, look at the greats, the greatest of the great. So look at Gretzky. Was he the biggest, strongest, fastest player on
Look
the
at
ice?
Messi.
Look at Messi, right? You got this guy that's just little tiny dude running
Messi's
around,
tiny,
right? And that's why it's very, when people say who are the athletes that you've worked with that impressed you the most, I'm like, guys who are my side, like Isaiah Thomas for the Celtics.
Oh my
he's
God.
my size and he's tearing it up.
Your size? What do you mean?
He's my size. He's literally
Isaiah
5.
Thomas.
He's 5'9".
No,
He's the point.
Isaiah-
How do you not
Brian's
know
thinking of
this?
the Detroit Pistons.
no. I'm thinking about Isaiah Thomas.
Brian doesn't
I
watch
thought
the
he was like
NBA.
6'1".
He just scored 53 points
He's
the other
thinking of
night in
Isaiah
a
Thomas
playoff
for the
game.
Detroit Pistons.
Right.
Isaiah Thomas is the starting point guard for the Celtics.
Who am I thinking about?
You're thinking of Isaiah
Detroit-
Thomas.
It's the point
this is
guard from
tough.
the
So,
Pistons.
guy.
Yeah. So there's Isaiah Thomas,
Okay.
and who's old,
coached the Knicks
retired
for a while, got
and
lost
then
his
there's
job.
Isaiah Thomas, who's the parents named him after Isaiah Thomas,
gotcha.
who's the star in probably finished third or fourth in MVP voting for the Boston Celtics. His sister just died.
that one.
Yeah.
Yeah, he scored 53 points the other night in a
He's that
playoff game.
freak.
God.
He's tiny.
He's tiny. He's my size.
my God.
He's my size. He's playing against trees.
Yeah, that's
right. He's a
right.
little
a
shrub.
little bit like
in a
Allen
forest.
Iverson.